Hi and welcome to the 64 doors. Today we're going to open door 2. Behind this door we find an archetype that we can call the wayshower or the feminine. It's the only hexagram in the whole I Ching that is made up of only broken yin lines. That's also why in the I Ching we call it a receptive. I have to admit that this is my life's work, my personality sun. So I'm risk of being a little bit more personal today because this is a activation that of course I'm like living in this lifetime quite intensely, both the lower frequencies and the higher frequencies, right? So we're going to look at it from a human design perspective, a Jinky perspective, and we're going to start to see how we can embody the energy of this hexagram, which, as I feel for the 1 and the 2 especially, the prime forces of the universe, these are main energies that we all have in us. So let's go into the rave mandala. So right now we have the sun in Taurus in gate 2. Here you can see only the receptive broken lines. And then we have the earth in Scorpio in Jinky or gate 1. And here you can see, this is the easiest way to see what it means to be programming partners or polar opposite. That when we have the 2, everything is open. And here is really the opposite. Wherever there is an open line in the 2, there is going to be a closed line in the 1. So here we have the complete, the heaven, that's what it's called, 2 trigrams of heaven, and then we have 2 trigrams of earth here. And then the design part of the cross is the 13 in Aquarius and the 7 in Leo. And what's special with this cross as well is that it has all the gates in the G center, and the G center is the center for direction, identity, and love. So when we look at the human design crosses for this activation this week, we have the right angle cross of the Sphinx. So this is when you have a cross that can be all the way from a 1-3 to a 4-6. So there's a lot of crosses, right, on the that are right angle crosses. And it says the energy of this cross is to see and be open to the possibilities. You're here to guide us by showing us the main possible directions and ways to create a beautiful world. You point out the many possible roads we may choose or take or give suggestions for alternative routes. However, you may have a difficulty explaining why to take that suggested route. For me, this is my cross, I'm a 4-6. For me, I did think that this thing of like not actually really wanting to explain was my open head and ajna, and also maybe my open ego, that I'm not here to prove anything. I'm not here to be certain. I'm not here to have this constant, this thought process that is kind of fixed and consistent. I see though that this is the feminine quality of being a GPS in the moment. This is a coding of water as well. So that is this flowing, trusting in the moment and not really knowing why, but being very sure of that direction. So here we see the keywords higher knowledge is what they say for gate 2, self-expression, listener, and the role of the self. So I'm not going to go in exactly to all of these this time. I just want to show you that there's also just a position, I can't even say the word, cross for the second gate. And so then we have the same on the personality side, and then we have the 49 and the 4 on the design side, and the same thing. I think this is a 6-2, so 4-1-6-2. And I know I have quite a lot of friends that have this one, and they are a little bit more rebellious, I would say, than when you have the 13 and the 7 on the design side. It is to listen to the past with empathy and kind of optimism that things can get better. And then the 7 is the role of the self, but it's really that future-oriented energy that sees, okay, listen to the past, see where we are, how we feel here with the 2 and the 1, and then where are we going. And I would say that the 49 and the 4 are a little bit more rebellious. They are understanding the past, and they have that more I feel like more like a thought process around it, but they are also rebelling for like what didn't work in the past and how to move forward. So I feel like those crosses are all quite powerful crosses, because what I say sometimes is like when you have the energies, the imprinting yourself of like the polarities of the universe, the super heaven and the super earth, in a way, of the all yang and the all yin, it is like kind of a big scope that you're going to have to experience in your life. So these are the crosses. And when we look at the circuitry, we see that the 2 comes out from the bottom of the personality, or of the diamond heart, you should say. This is the G center, and then it goes into the 14 in the sacral center. In the circuitry, we call this the channel of the beat, a design of being a keeper of the keys. And again, I think this is an important word. And why are we calling it like that? Well, for me, the most powerful connection probably in the whole chart is that connection between the sacral center, which is pure life force. You can go back, actually look at it. Here we have pure life force. And then the G center, that is the love, the direction, and the identity. So when we can have those 2 coming together, we are basically taking that life force, or maybe you could say also the animalistic nature or the selfish nature, in a way, that we have as one life force separated from the whole. But when we start to connect it into the heart, it becomes, what I feel, especially with this cross, it becomes the direction of where we're going, where we have been, where we're going. And we can also say that all the channels that are going here between the sacral and the G are tantric channels, because it is about that sublimation of energy. And I would say going from the lower individual chakras up to the heart and the collective transpersonal chakras. So that's what it says here in the channel, is because you have the ability and power to always follow your direction in life. You are a wayshower for others, whether directly or indirectly. So it is a little bit like that. The 2 knows because it's like water, and it flows, and it knows where to go. And that's why it's not like an imposing leadership energy. It's more an orienting energy. We're going to see more of that when we go into the gene keys. And if we would say something more about the second gate or gene key, like keyword wise, we would say earth, like we already said. We would say it's magnetic. If you read about the city, you're going to see about the magnetism. And also in human design, we know that the G center is the magnetic monopole. And then we can also say that it has this inherent knowing that we're all one. It trusts in everything. And it has this constant orientation that is always in movement, but at the same time on the inside is kind of in stillness. That's at least when we speak about the archetype. That's what the archetype has learned to do, instead of the lower frequencies that we're also going to speak about. Some of the Achilles heels that we will speak about, especially in human design, would be melancholy about things not moving fast enough, especially with a cross. When you have the 7-2, you're seeing the future, you're seeing it. Or if you're a 4-6, or like I would say if you have a 6 and you have this vision for the future, but then you are water and you can only flow in what's permitted in where you are somehow. So there can absolutely be the melancholy, and melancholy is what we speak about in gates that are individual gates. So we have a melancholy in all the individual circuitry, and here that melancholy is about not being able to drive in that direction fast enough. And we could also say that the second gene key sees the universal. So sometimes it might forget the personal. It's an individual gate, but since it really embraces everything, it is, you could say, it's more universal. It's about unity, more seeing oneness than seeing the individual. And it can also have an inability to actually push away or cut, because water doesn't really cut, right? Water penetrates everything, and it can be hard for the second gate or gene key that embraces everything to suddenly be like, no, not this. It's like either you embrace everything or you don't. They go down to just the theme for the second gate. people with a flair for innovative guidance. And this again, when you have the second gene key, you can often guide, but again, it's guidance from the G center. It's not guidance from the head and the ajna, or it's not even more than that. You would say it's not from an understanding often. We can underpin the inner knowing by understanding, but actually the way that the feminine navigates is completely by intuition. That's how I would explain it. You can even see that the foundation energy of the hexagram is that in the second gene key line one is intuition. So yeah, and what more? Did I have anything else? Yeah, so positive attributes, knows the direction forward, embraces everything, and yields and flows. So if we go in now to, we have already been into, but if you go even a little bit more into the gene keys way of seeing it, so as you know, we have always the whole frequency band from a very contracted energy to a very expansive and open. So when you look in the living library, you're going to see the red word is the contracted energy and the blue word is the very expansive energy. And as human beings, where we want to orient, having the word orientation here, where we want to orient is in the green word. That's the pathway. That's the connection, you could say, between this very low dislocation point in this case and the very high unity frequency. So as for a human being, orientation, finding your way in every moment is where the second gene key works in a human sense. And then there are going to be probably these glimpses of unity. And we can also see that it's connected to the first gene key. They are the programming partners. So dislocation, entropy. And these are kind of big in a sense, again, because we're working with the polarities of the universe, like the very black and white in a way. So, and it's very dark to be in dislocation and entropy. We can even, I think it says here, well, as you see it, so it changes. I guess that's very true, because what I feel in my own path is that I've been trying to run away from that feeling of being lost. So I've been kind of going to new places, because every time I go somewhere, it feels like I'm not lost anymore because I just arrived, right? And then even harder it's been to run away from the entropy. But that's what I've probably been doing a lot with busyness and having the 34, for example, and those keys that are kind of physical. Then you think you can run away from entropy, but you can never run away from the shadow frequencies. They are going to they're going to show themselves from you if you don't accept them. And that's what this, as you see it, so it changes. Once you accept it and you kind of fall through into the void is amazing. But as long as you push it away, it's not that amazing. So yeah, and we see also that orientation and freshness go together. Like when you're orienting in that intuition, in the moment, being your own GPS, you're going to like absolutely find freshness on the way. It's going to be there because the water is always flowing, and it's going to find new ways of flowing. It's part of that magnetism, that evolution, and these kind of big words of existence. And then beauty and unity, of course, go together. I feel like if we go into a little bit of the victim states, we already said it. So this is the victim of external circumstances. And I feel like in a kind of bigger sense, if we say that this is the feminine, we could say that historically for the last few thousands of years, at least, we can see that the feminine has been repressed. And it's not because there's something wrong with the feminine, but it has been because of the external circumstances, the culture, like the beliefs. So that's often what it feels like for the second gene key. It feels, and that's why it loses its power, because it feels like it's victim for external consequences, circumstances, and it feels lost. And then the reaction to that is to try to be super organized, super regimented. So I don't know how many times I've fallen into that in different periods of my life, like trying to be doing things like extremely well organized, like having all the clothes for the whole week on somewhere, in little things that are folded, and or maybe food for the whole week, like doing things that are supposed to be so efficient so there is no way of being lost. And also wanting to attain some kind of perfection. That is a perfection that comes from the mind, that because it's the mind that wants to regiment things, because the true nature of this gene key is flowing water. So you can see how the loss is the passive one. I don't know, I'm floating around, and the regiment is a reactive one that really tries to again run away from that feeling of being lost. And we can also just go to, at the same time, when we are speaking about the lower frequencies, I would like to go to here we have the channel again. So disorientation and chaos, because we are in the stream of creativity. This is the individual circuitry. So it feels like really existential and really lost. But then the beautiful thing, when we have the 14 is the sacral power. It leads to empowerment. When you know where you're going and you have the energy, you are empowered. That's why it's the keeper of the keys. And then highest frequency. This is a kind of funny word for the acidic frequency, I think, but it's really to have all the resources and have the clarity, I would say, of how to build something better, something higher, I would say, something more valuable. So going back to the I Ching, speaking about the receptive, and this is beautiful. And I think this is completely what I was saying with the 1 and the 2 and how it feels like dislocating the void. If you have the 1 and the 2 in your activation sequence or in your incarnation cross, I think you know how it feels. And I think if you haven't like accepted it and fallen through it as of yet, you're kind of hate it. If you have fallen through it, you know how powerful it is, because you will find yourself when you die. And then orienting within, it's always within. It's never about the external circumstances. And it's not about being able to put like your plan on your life and be, I used to know for 6 months in advance every week where I was going to fly, and I knew the airport and the airport code and even the time. And I used to have that for 6 months, like every week for 6 months. That's like 25 weeks in my head. And that's part of the regimentation. That was part of my fear of actually allowing the energy of the wayshower, of the feminine inside of me. So it's about receiving energy from all space and unlocking that unity, that oneness that we all can feel, and that pure yin energy. It goes together, of course, with the astrology. So lover, dancer, embodied beauty, and self-service to self-growth through the experience of the senses. Yeah, I can see that. I can see that every time I'm lost, if I come back to the senses and to my life force, and I don't have the 14, I guess, but when you connect into that sacral knowing, that sacral, it's not even knowing, that sacral being almost, that sacral energy, that's when you come back to the senses. That's when, for me also, that 34 connects into my 57 in the splenic center. So I have that whole intuition, senses, instinct part of me that reconnects again. And then I feel suddenly not lost anymore. And you can see what we were saying before, fixation. Taurus is a fixed sign, very fixed sign. So in the lower frequency, it becomes too fixed and too stubborn. But when it opens up and trusts, when it can feel the lover, the dancer, and the embodied energy, then it allows flow and presence. There's also something so beautiful that I want to show you, which is that the 2 and the 8, this is the codon ring of water. And that's alchemically bounded through with the codon ring of fire, which is the 14 and the 1. So this is, I'm going to read about it actually, because I think it's worth reading and feeling into, because these are really powerful, fire and water. And it's like, it's its own element. I've been seeing lately more and more that the combined element of fire and water, which I would say is Shakti, which is very connected to the second gene key and all the more feminine gene keys. So in the living library, so this codon ring of water, it speaks about both the codon ring of water and the fire. It says, the ring of water draws humans along an inevitable journey to self-realization. This is the great feminine ring, made of two of the prime feminine gene keys in the human genome. The ring of water forms a kind of eternal genetic knot with its polarity, the ring of fire. These two chemical families move us along the trajectory of our destinies, ensuring that our genetic material finds its opposite match. Even deep within the body, these chemical families set the primal blueprint for the balance of all the opposing forces inside of us. It is in the crossfire of these two codon rings that the mystical figure of 8 is forged within each of us. This eternal love knot, deep within our planetary gene pool, sets each man and each woman squarely on the human journey. And I can also say something about how powerful this is. So my long-term relationships that I had before I was even into human design or anything like that, I had 3 long relationships, and all 3 were with a incarnation cross of contagion, and the incarnation cross of contagion has the 8 and the 14. So it's that when my 1 and the 2 magnetically felt into the 8 and the 14 to connect, those are channels that go from the throat to the G, and then from the G to the sacral, the whole middle pillar. And that's the second gene key is magnetic. So that's how before I knew anything about these systems, how my aura, I guess, was attracting and what it wanted to merge with. So it is really powerful with the codon ring of fire and the codon ring of water. And again, a little bit like the prime yin and the prime yang. These polarities are things that are for all of us. But it's just like when you have it in your blueprint, it's kind of, you are a little bit like a puppet, I guess, under those energies. You can't like go in and study them and then be like, oh, that's interesting, and come out. You really actually, you live in it, and it's not a choice. Not even the void is a choice, I would say. So this week, I feel it's a good week to tune into your receptivity. Are you somebody that is able to receive, or do you prefer giving? Are you a giver or a receiver? You can tune into, what are you doing in your life when you feel the void or you feel lost? What are you going to? Are you going to activity, or are you kind of breaking down to it? Like, what are the dynamics or the patterns that happen for you when you feel like you're not in sync with life? And this can probably be, this is an opportunity where we are right now to tune into Mother Earth, to trigrams of Earth, right? It's an opportunity to do that. But also there is quite a lot of fear because of people dying from COVID-19, because of not knowing with, financially, maybe losing your job. There are many things that can make you feel lost. And remembering that the second gene key is in that identity center. So when our role, as whatever it is kind of taken away, if you have identified with your job or this or that, when that's taken away, it's, can you still find a flow? Can you be a fish that swims in a new swimming pool and orient in that? Because that's the ability of the second gene key, to always orient and find a direction, whatever is going on. So maybe look into your direction, and what are you a wayshower for? What are you role modeling? What are you an example for? It's connected to that 8 in the codon ring, right? The 8 is about your unique style. So what is your unique style when you are a role model or an example? Or if you resonate more like with being maybe a more individual expression of the role model, which would be the first line, like how do you look when you're empowered? What comes out in the world? What is fresh and new that comes out from you? And then, of course, on a more collective level, this is a super collective gene key, like we're saying, that's even like the Achilles heel, to not really even know where I end and you start. So this is something that I've been dealing with, and I'm still trying to understand, also with a completely open ego, a completely open G. It's where like that oneness, when does it serve us and when might it not serve us? And tapping in also to the feeling of unity, maybe doing some kind of meditation. I mean, now most of the things are on Zoom, but I really love, for example, what we're doing in Unlock Your Design in the membership group, when we tune into each other. And last time we even did some embodiment practices. I think it's because we're going into Taurus. Because when we can feel that oneness, I mean, maybe the first step is not to feel the oneness with the world, but who can you choose to feel unity with in this coming week? And maybe it's unity starting with, like, through the senses, because that's the Taurus energy. Maybe it is with your beloved, maybe it is in intimacy, but how can you expand that field of feeling union with or unity with other people to ever bigger field until there is no, until that field encompasses everything. So I would say it's a quite, in some ways, it's an abstract gene key. And that's why I'm trying to pin it down, but I'm finding myself again, coming out from it. And I just wish everybody a super cool week. I'm going to take some time off on my birthday, and I will be back with the following transit. Thank you.